Welcome back, you guys, and thank you for joining me. After many requests and emails and text messages, we finally got the man back in the seat again. Stephen Meade with MonetaPro was here back in March. We had rave reviews. Now we're here on a meeting with Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephen. I really appreciate you making the time with your busy schedule to be with us. How are you?
Doing great, Leo. Thank you. And yeah, we were just there in March. A lot obviously has changed since then, but you and your group did a remarkable job setting up great meetings, putting us in front of some really fascinating and interesting people. And we're just looking forward to sharing new information and keeping all that moving ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, let's jump right into it. Let's backtrack a little bit and start from the beginning. What is MonetaPro and why does it matter?
Yeah, so MonetaPro itself is a software platform company. We've built an enterprise level software application. It's award-winning. It's got some blockchain integrations, fits primarily around supply chain and financial technology. So that's MonetaPro as a company. The actual market we're rolling out is MonetaPro. It's MonetaPro.com. Globally, there's a $17 trillion existing industry of what's called corporate barter, global trade, or trade finance. And it's where companies like Ford or Maersk or food companies out of Abu Dhabi and Dubai and the UAE will actually trade assets in a non-cash manner. And MonetaPro is a private marketplace for these companies to transact. They can list goods, transfer them to another party. They receive what we call trade credits, a GBUC, a general business credit, and they use that credit to buy assets from other parties. So we're technically a marketplace, but we're a distribution channel, supply chain, and then we're looking to automate this global $17 trillion industry.
Wow, it sounds like a great internal club for these type of exchanges and companies that you don't have to go through. I mean, look, I get it. You know, I go through so many different avenues just to purchase something, even if it's online, that you have to go through your bank, through this drop shipping, all this, that, wow, I get it.
Yeah, and it's funny when you call it a club because it's a formula I actually created that succinctly talks about it. It's ELT equals V. It's efficiency. So efficiency is rather than me calling you and, hey, Leo, I've got some food. Do you have computers? Like old school. So MonetaPro is an efficiency. It's sort of like a better Amazon. And then liquidity is the buyers and sellers that exist within the marketplace. It's easier for me to list a product where multiple people can see it. And it's quicker for me to go look and see lots of potential assets I could acquire rather than having to call around. And then the trust, kind of to your point, Leo, is it's a closed market, but it's almost like members in the sense that these big companies are already trading with other companies they know. We're not trying to bring them a bunch of new buyers and sellers. We're going to these largest companies saying, you already have 200 or 300 people you're trading with that you trust. Let's move them into a closed marketplace and create efficiency, liquidity, and trust, and that equals value.
Excellent. Excellent. I get it. Very good. Now, what kind of companies, again, if you could emphasize a little more, what kind of companies would use this platform?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've targeted, again, the people that know me and your group does a little bit, I'm called the bullseye guy. And what I mean by that is we're about targeting and being very, very specific. And so what we'll look at here is we looked at the 2,000 largest companies in the world. That was the outside of the bullseye. 2,000 companies based on assets, not sales or revenue, but things they own. Within there are 10 primary industries of companies that are already doing this type of trading. And it's all the major airlines. It's the automotive car companies. It's hotels. It's media. It's food and drink, natural resources, computer, consumer electronics. So any of these big companies around the world historically are trading. An airline will trade with a car company or a truck company, and Maersk, the global shipping company, will trade shipping capacity with an electronics company that needs to be on that ship.
You mean they're doing a trade for trade?
They're doing it trade for trade. And if you think of these big activities are going on. Dubai, we actually learned, again, through some of your great relationships, Dubai was doing about $17 billion a year. And it's a pretty simple example. If using a shipping company, if Maersk or Seaborn or these big companies have a ship that leaves the port, if 20 or 30% of that capacity is not sold, you can't resell it. The minute the ship leaves, it's gone. It's not like a car.
Wow.
And some of these car companies may not be able to pay for all that shipping until they deliver the car. So there's these finance situations of how do you finance capacity? And that's what our software does. It allows a Maersk, an airlines to say, hey, we've got this excess capacity. Here's the price. People could buy it. The Maersk earns a credit, and they use that credit to turn around and buy some other asset they need. It could be cars or trucks or computers or gasoline. So it's this big global ecosystem of corporate trading and trade finance that's never really been automated inside of a global marketplace.
It sounds like obviously the market is there, the clients are there, and this is something that will cut out a lot of red tape and save a lot of time for everybody.
Yeah.
And you talk about blockchain. How does that work on your system?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, because sometimes we've actually won 8 contests around the world in the blockchain financial technology fintech space. But I make the joke.
That's why, not to interrupt you, but that's why specifically I had asked you, please come to Dubai and present out here, because after following you around for the last few years, I saw you kept impressing everyone. And when I shared with just a few friends here what you had done and who you are, they said, get this guy here.
Yeah.
And so thank you again for coming and go ahead.
Yeah, we're certainly coming back. The one mistake we made, I get to joke with you about, we just brought on the former CIO of BlackRock, and they've been through Dubai and the UAE raising trillions of dollars. And that was his joke. So we want to come back, but we may ask for a little more money to grow even faster. But back to the blockchain component, people joke and say, oh, you're a blockchain company. And I look at them and I say, we're no more a blockchain company than you might be an internet company just because you use a website or a database or SAP or Oracle or an accounting system like QuickBooks. But we use blockchain in a really, really unique way. And here's what I mean by that. I'll give you an example very quickly, and it's easy to understand. If a company goes on to Ford, goes on and says, hey, I'm going to transfer cars from the United States to, Dubai to Leo. Those big companies run on SAP and Oracle, these big accounting systems. If you sell the cars, the accounting system gets updated. If you transfer or trade that car, that accounting module still shows $1 million worth of inventory. If they get audited, that's a problem. That inventory is missing. So what MonetaPro does is we write an invoice, kind of like in Amazon. You can go to your Amazon account, click order history, and it shows you everything you bought. But that order history doesn't communicate with anything. Our order history writes to the IBM Hyperfabric side of blockchain. Then that communicates with SAP and Oracle, the accounting modules. So step one, for us, blockchain is just a better database. It's a better communication tool than Access. So what our system does is when a company transfers the assets, if Ford, any company sent $1 million worth of cars, our invoice can use Hyperfabric with IBM, go into the SAP or Oracle module. Step one, we remove that quantity. So now you have $1 million worth of cars that have been removed where that accounting module is in compliance and balance. But you can't just take $1 million of inventory out, and you got to show that it goes somewhere. So then we write a blockchain invoice contract to prove the assets were transferred to a third party. So now if the auditor comes in, they're like, oh, well, $1 million is gone. Where did it go? It went to Leo in Dubai. So we use blockchain for the seller to update inventory modules and give them an audit trail for proof of transfer. Excellent. Then real quick, we added something that's really cool in for the buyer. So in this example, Leo, if you actually acquired the cars, you have a different issue on your end. You now have $1 million worth of inventory that has to be put into your accounting module somewhere. Our system uses the other side of the IBM blockchain to actually write that same accounting record into your inventory module. Now you don't have to do anything. It just updates to show that you acquired it. Your accounting balances are updated, and there's a contract to show how you acquired it. So we're using enterprise blockchain to update asset and inventory modules. And we're actually, if not the first company in the world, we're one of the first ones to actually build a blockchain enterprise solution, integrate to IBM. That's actually running on Amazon's managed blockchain service, and we operate in SAP and Oracle. I know it's a bunch of buzzwords, but it's actually really cool what we built. But it goes back to the efficiency side. We give you more efficiency in terms of how we use blockchain to update assets and provide audit trails.
Highly sophisticated, definitely needed. Thank you. And as the world opens back up after COVID, how is MonetaPro going to be useful during this times?
Yeah, so MonetaPro itself, the global marketplace was already $17 trillion. And people think that's a really big number. I think it's a big number too. The United Nations put that out. I still think it's too big, but it's big. Pre-COVID, meaning before, the inventory that companies were trading were excess inventory. So, you know, cars left over at the end of the year, extra computers before the model came in. Food, again, Dubai trade billions of dollars of food because when the food comes into the granary, if you don't sell it and you have a new harvest coming in, you either have to destroy it or trade it. So a lot of that before was already going on. Post-COVID, we're actually even more excited. There was just an article out from Mercer.
Wait a minute. I always wondered what happened to the excess that didn't get sold. So this is really great.
This is all the trading that goes on for inventory. Because again, as a CFO, let's talk cars or computers. They're an easy one. I have $1 million worth of cars left at the end of the year, right? And my new models are coming in. Well, what are my options? I can put it on sale. So $1 million, I discount 20%, goes down to 800, sits on my lot, depreciates, I sell it and pay taxes. Or I can try and dump it internationally and kill my channel. Or I call my buddy Leo and say, Leo, I have $1 million worth of cars. I know you have a bunch of salespeople in Dubai. I'll give you $1 million worth of cars, full retail. I'm not going to discount it. You give them to your salespeople. Why don't you give me $1 million of computers that I know at the end of model? We'll call it even. So the financial leverage is you and I both book full retail, acquire the asset without spending cash. And in the US and other countries, we actually have some tax advantages because it was an equal or tax-free transaction, not a cash transaction.
Okay.
So the existing industry is huge leverage financially.
Thank you for that. Now, you're also launching something called EAMS. What does that stand for? What does it mean?
I am, Leo, but just for edification, let me finish the post-COVID part because post-COVID MonetaPro to me is interesting and I'd love to talk about EAMS. Article just came out from Maersk. Again, we're trying to partner with Maersk, the global shipping company. The CEO came out and said he believes international commerce and global shipping will be down 20 to 25 or 30%. So if you think about post-COVID, a bunch of these auto manufacturers still have cars that were built, but demand disappeared. That ship is still going to leave the harbor, but it's going to be 30% less with capacity. Hotels are still going to be there, but it might be 20 or 30% less people traveling. So we think post-COVID, MonetaPro's got an even bigger opportunity because we're a non-cash trade finance solution. We're a new distribution channel for these companies to put and market their goods and services that are otherwise sitting idle, unutilized, or unsold. So we think our opportunity post-COVID is actually bigger than it was before because there's a global glut of inventory and capacity that needs to be moved, and not everybody's going to have cash to be able to do it.
Well, I saw that. I actually saw that working before I talked to you. I said, you know, what's going to happen? It seems like even airlines are going to be trading with other groups that they need something from, and they're going to be trading tickets, airline flights, for services.
And a big component of airlines, people don't know this, some do, it's not the above plane, it's below. What I mean is when that plane leaves, a lot of these planes make money on the cargo capacity underneath. So even though the plane might be 30% utilized yield management at the seat level, they also have cargo space underneath they have to fill.
I never thought about it. You're absolutely right. I always wondered because, I'm traveling as much as you are, and I always thought, well, wait a minute, how are they making any money if, hardly any seats are filled? So
Yeah,
that's
the
what it is. Okay.
PPE, the air bridge, the supply chain, and that's probably a good transition into Eames, because this aspect of the sky bridge of how does equipment move quicker or supply chains move quicker internationally, it's called the air bridge. A lot of equipment comes over on airplanes versus on the ship or shore, and that cargo capacity in the plane is a huge revenue for the airlines.
Excellent. Okay. So tell us about Eames.
Eames, yeah. Emergency Asset Management System, EAMS. So again, let's back up. MonetaPro itself is a software platform. We're using that technology for MonetaPro, which is the $17 trillion global trade. And within MonetaPro, there's a bunch of functionality, but there's a button that says buy and sell. Do I want to sell something? I click, add an asset. Do I want to buy something? I search and acquire. It's traditional e-commerce marketplace. But our software is built with hierarchies, divisions, departments, rights, and authorities. Fast forward to COVID, global pandemic, global problem. One of the first ever that wasn't just localized. The United States created what's called a supply chain task force. And it's not just the US. The UK has NHS, National Health, even UAE and Dubai. Primarily what happens in the quote supply chain is a country says, we need more masks. We need more ventilators. We need more doctors. We need more equipment. Well, technically, there's a bunch of types of supply chain that people don't know. We're actually working on this. Supply chain one says, which companies are around that we already own or are in our country, we can get stuff. Two says, which countries or companies are around that are international, but we can still get things. Three in the supply chain says, well, are there foreign companies we can buy things from? Now, each of those aspects in the supply chain have a bunch of issues. How long does it take to deliver something? Does it get stuck out of customs in a country? Like China blocked a bunch of exports because they just blocked it at the customs level. They didn't want it coming out. The fourth level of a supply chain is what is already owned and idle within the country or within the state. That's what Eames is. Eames is the emergency asset management system, and it primarily is going to allow a country like UAE, a country like the United States, to have a private marketplace that says, okay, there's 400 hospitals around the country. Within those hospitals, where are extra respirators that aren't being used? Where are extra masks and supply equipment? Where's a respirator in this part of the country that may not have a COVID response that could be loaned or deployed to another hotspot? Right now, there's no system in the world that provides visibility of what's idle. So Eames says here, create the hierarchies. Everybody puts in what's idle and available. Then it gets really interesting. The blockchain component says, if Leo transferred $5 million worth of ventilators to me, whether he's in Dubai and I'm in, Abu Dhabi, or whether it's California to New Jersey, that equipment, when it's transferred, is loaned. It's not donated or given. You're going to let me borrow it. Well, borrow has the connotation that when the disaster's over, you need it back. So what Eames does in the MonetaPro Eames system is the blockchain component that I explained earlier. If you transfer $5 million worth of equipment, the blockchain technology we have writes a record to show that asset was transferred to a third party. Now you have a trackable asset trail to say, hey, when the disaster's over, I need it back.
Exactly, yes.
And if that person loaned it to somebody else, you actually have a thread to go find it, because at the end of the year, Leo, if they come in and audit you and say, hey, where are your $5 million worth of respirators? You can't say, oh, well, I gave them to Stephen during the disaster. No, you have a legal responsibility. So Eames, same software, just has a different application to track that asset with our invoicing system. And then what's really cool is in MonetaPro, again, we work on what's called a GBUC, a business usage credit. It's like a store credit in Amazon. Sell something, get a credit, go buy something else. In Eames, we call that a crisis credit. And the reason that's important, real quick, is it's simple, is if Leo transfers $5 million worth of assets to me, technically, you want to be reimbursed for that asset, whether you're loaning it to me on a daily rate or hourly or weekly. In the US especially, you want to track that value because the state or federal government will reimburse you for loaning that asset out. So Eames, with our crisis credit, says if you loan it out, you earn these credits. Again, they're just electronic, but the credits give you an audit trail to get reimbursed your money. And then the buy side's really cool. Now you can go into the purchasing side. With our credits, you can say, hey, this hospital group in this part of the country, because they're smaller, they only need $2 million worth of purchasing credits. And that hospital can go acquire the equipment and masks and ventilators they need. But a bigger hospital group might be given $50 million of credits. And again, they're purchasing credits. So Eames, same software. That's what I want to be very clear on. We're not reinventing something. We've just repurposed the existing software asset to have a different functional use. So for anybody that's looking to invest in MonetaPro, we've got a huge opportunity because the MonetaPro market that we're going after is a $17 trillion global transfer, barter, trade finance market. Eames, same software, it's just a different revenue channel where it's private labeled for a different application for people to use the same software for a different purpose.
Love it, love it. Good work, Stephen. Thank you again so much. We will be back to you hopefully in the next few days once I get some feedback on our interview. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.
All right. Thanks, Leo. Always excited to talk to you. Look forward to working with you and your group at any point.
Thank you, Stephen.